Welcome to the Cowfish Show, an exploration in human evolution, raising consciousness, creating happiness, fulfillment, and love, one soul at a time. I'm E.L. Brooks, a newly awakened soul on a mission to help people find their happiness and truth.
And I'm Lindsey Kimura, a happiness explorer empowering humans in wisdom and understanding. The universe united us to share our passions. Welcome to our show.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Eric.
And Lindsey.
It's a little confusing because we pre-tape our shows, but it's 2019. It's the new year. And I have to say, for the first time, my New Year's experience, I had no alcohol. And it was kind of amazing.
Wow.
I mean, I ain't going to tell how old I am, but I mean, literally, like this is the very first time, not an ounce of alcohol.
That's amazing, Eric.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked myself.
Wake up clear and fresh for the new year.
Definitely, yeah. So yes, it did. It was very interesting. I don't know about yours, but as you live a certain lifestyle, you start to vibrate. So I accidentally crashed a party that I was not intended to be at, and ironically, they had this whole process. The lady was really, I don't want to say eccentric because, that's labeling and whatever, but she was enthusiastic and she was very demanding. So everyone at her party, and I didn't even know her, she's like, all right, everyone at the party, you must write down a list of things that you're going to destroy and release in 2019. So everything that you have for 2018 that didn't serve you, you have to write it down and release that. And she had a big bonfire in the back, and she said, we're going to sign it. And then at, 10 minutes before midnight, we're all going to toss our list into the fire and release it. And it was amazing. It was pretty cool.
So cool. So pretty much you got lured into a ritual without even knowing.
Well, yeah. And then ironically, through my whole transformation, I did learn about clearing and all this other stuff. So it was pretty good. So it was interesting that resonated and kind of continued on.
Yes.
So shout out to our sponsors real quick. Magnum Watch, not just any watch. All the watches are water resistant and you get a lot of bang for your buck. I'm actually not wearing Magnum today. I've worn them in other episodes, but I have an event and I'm kind of coordinated. So I've got one of my other watches, but go visit magnumwatch.com. All listeners get 25% off using our coupon code, which is Cowfish25. So season 1, episode 3, why do people put up walls? As we like to ask questions, we like to give the answers, but we also like to provide solutions. So in our solutions, we want to discover vulnerability. So Would you like to kick us off?
Sure. So vulnerability, what does that mean? And I think it means being open. And in the past, or maybe even present, we may think about vulnerability as a weakness in that we're vulnerable, so we're not as strong in that particular area. But vulnerability is actually a strength. So we're going to talk more about that. And pretty much the more we open and the deeper we go with people, so the softer we become in our heart space and our energy centers, the deeper we can connect with others and things in all subtle bodies. So mentally connecting with somebody, physically, sometimes emotionally, spiritually, and we strengthen the ties. It's these bodies, energetic ties, and the deeper we go, the more enriching and fulfilling experiences we can have with people. And so actually, if you are vulnerable, which in our kind of definition that we want to talk about today is being open and candid and honest and authentic, we can really step into our truth and express our truth. And vulnerability just leads to more enrichment in life. Definitely.
It's deeper connections. One of the reasons why we put up walls, though, is as humans, we have every decision that we make is either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. And so as we get older and older and older, we build up these filters, which creates, the need to avoid the pain. And in the universe, there are two basic motivating forces. We have fear and love, which we've always talked about in the other previous episodes. So when we vibrate in fear, we're actually you pull away from life. You actually withdraw. We'll show a chart later on in this episode, but there's a vibrational loop that you actually withdraw from life, and then when you vibrate in love, you're actually open to life, acceptance, experiences, passion, excitement, etc. So once I just talked about in the previous episodes, first level of consciousness is tied to the narrative, is tied to the ego. And so some of the byproducts of fear is shame, blame, anger, anxiety, hate, resentment. And in the narrative, we're taught not to be open. We're taught to be tough. We can't trust anybody because that'll end up getting hurt. But in love is a non-negotiable need for all humans. But as we experience love, we experience pain, and that, creates the egos. It's like, wow, I don't like that. That didn't feel good. Let me put up some walls, which we think are walls to protect us, but they actually end up caging us in and really stifling and compromising our happiness in our lives. I want to give an example of, just so, typical relationship between a guy and a girl, right? Mm-hmm. A guy and a girl meets each other. They say, hey, I kind of like you. I kind of like you too. They start to date, kind of maybe fall in love or whatever. But during the course of their dating, maybe the guy's like, you know what? I'm just not that into it. Something happened, like with me, like there was, in my older days, I would kind of be judgmental, or, one in particular for this particular story. I remember dating this lady who, at the time I was into drama, and she was like very aggressive and mean to other people. But then a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, it's just a matter of time. If she's mean to these other people, it's just a matter of time she's going to be that way with me. And so I was like, let me just cut it off before I get too involved. But in that situation, being our biggest fears are being seen, and also the fear of rejection. So when you're in first level consciousness, the rejectee, depending, they can go one or two ways. Like if they are feeling shameful, then they're like, oh, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy of his love or whatever. But if they are, because the ego wants to make up stories, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and if they are in the blame thing, then it's like, oh, I gave you the goods and now you're bouncing kind of thing. It's like, you just used me. And the rejector is like, well, I was just kind of being honest with you. And both of them get stung, right? So the rejectee is like, oh, I opened up to you and now you don't want me. So they feel, lost, right? And rejected. And then the rejector is like, wow, I was trying to be honest and now I'm just getting all this backlash. Mm-hmm. And so the cause and effect of that is like, the ego says, that didn't feel good. Let's do everything in our powers to avoid, once again, the decision, avoid that pain. We don't want to ever experience that again, right? And so up comes the walls. But as we close up ourselves, like I said, we end up caging and compromising our quality of life.
Yes. Eric, thank you for sharing that, because I was just going through something this week and where I had a very different viewpoint from someone else, and I looked at it from her perspective, and it wasn't about who's right, who's wrong. There's this Korean expression that says, I think, you think, who said? It's like we all think something, we all feel something, but really the only thing we can really have choice, freedom of will and choice over is our own thought. So what I had to switch in the moment was to change from trying to fix or to shape somebody else's beliefs or opinions and get clear of that, where I can't change that. But what I can change is my thinking toward it, and who you can really take charge over, and that's yourself. And I think that the change, one thing I wanted to mention is that the change happens instantly. Like you can choose in a moment to open your heart again, to open your mind, to open your physical body. You know, when we're closed down physically, we might hunch or we might cross our arms, and we can see it in our body language. But just by kind of letting your shoulders come down, sitting up straight, softening your heart, opening up your solar plexus, like all this, you can open. It doesn't take years, months. You don't have to go. I mean, it helps to, talk therapy or other methods, but we can make that conscious choice now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I forget who the doctor is, but it's proven that your thoughts, shape your body, but your body can also shape your thoughts as well. So, I know, like having different, words of affirmation, but like you said, body, just sometimes they even say like, just, this is the equality of satisfaction and victory. If you notice, most sports people, like when they either score a goal or touchdown or basket or soccer, they raise their hands, and it's they said if you do this every single morning for 20 seconds, at minimum 20 seconds, you'll raise your vibration and you'll raise your you can change your whole mindset, so to speak.
Yeah, a power pose.
Power pose, exactly. Yeah. So let's look at the chart. It's actually Dr. David Hawkins' vibrational chart, and we can see the vibrational cycle that happens when you vibrate in fear. I don't know if the audience can see it or whatever. But there it is. Okay, so if you notice, there's a loop, right? Everything's energy. Everything is we call like the rat race, the hedonic treadmill or hamster wheel or whatever. So everything comes in a loop. So if you look at fear, it vibrates at a frequency of 100, and you have your anxiety, you have the withdrawal, and your viewpoint in life is frightening, right? So you are what you believe. And so when you vibrate in love, it's completely different. You, like you said, you open up. If I want to go back to the whole dating, because I do a lot of coaching for relationships and stuff like that, and to me is if you run into somebody who is just not that into you, then you have to just accept it, right? There's, it's not an ego. I guarantee you, for every situation where a person may not be into you, you've probably have not been into a person. It's just a match thing, and a lot of people stay in situations that aren't healthy because of fear of being alone, fear of being rejected. But sometimes we just need to break free and own it and be ourselves, and not to get religious or anything like that, but they always say that when the source or God, whoever you want wherever your deity is, closes one door, they never close that door without opening up another door, and you truly have to kind of believe that.
And Eric, I was going to say on the relationship front, this idea, because I do readings for people, and oftentimes it comes up that more people than you think are actual potential romantic partners or life partners. You may not look at somebody and be like, oh, so-and-so in my life right now could actually be a potential romantic match or life partner. And I think what it really is about is being vulnerable, like we talked about, but also letting your partner have the room to grow. So always letting space for their development and not categorizing them or labeling them like, oh, my partner's consciousness is not as high right now, or this aspect of them is not where it needs to be for me to like them, or whatever the case may be. And so as humans, we are so multidimensional, and we have so many aspects of ourselves that sometimes it's not a certain person doesn't have that quality that you're looking for. It's just you giving the space, the softness, and the openness for them to to come out of that shell or so, in a way, or to express themselves and to be available. And I think timing is definitely a factor, but also just the takeaway that we do want to give people the space and leeway and comfort to actually be vulnerable. So it's a two-way street. So not just us opening, but then us providing that comfortable energy and environment for somebody else to open.
Yeah, but don't you find that only kind of happens when you elevate your consciousness? When you've kind of gone through experiences that have opened you up and you're like, wait a minute, these first level of consciousness is all about material and physical. So there's no substance. And so everything is judgmental. And I find, and including myself at back then, I find that you don't really become open, so to speak, until you've experienced like certain omens or angels that come across. Like I remember looking into a lot of people's eyes and it's like, wow, wait a minute, you're just, like they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Like you are pure. Like there's something about you that's just like non-threatening, right? Because we talked about in other episodes about our sweeping discernment or sweeping judgment. So when you run across certain people like that, I remember actually being an entrepreneur and going into the entertainment business. I always thought that you just had to be, we're taught competition, toughness. You had to be badass, right? So I was physically big and all this other stuff. And as a leader or as a manager, I was always taught that you had to manage based in fear. Like, people needed to fear you. And it wasn't until I met Richard Branson and Ken Berry, where it's, two of the nicest people that you will ever meet that were successful, and they managed in love, total autonomy. They're like, they handpick you and then they just gave you freedom. And if you made a mistake, it was, sit down, let's just figure out what went wrong. It was non-threatening, and it was beautiful. And I changed my whole approach to life, really, in doing so. I have a famous saying that which kind of balances out love and fear. And with the ego and fear, the famous saying is nothing means everything and everything means nothing. So what that means is with the ego and fear, nothing means everything. So if you say certain things, you have all of these insecurities and unresolved traumas, and so to speak. So those things get triggered easily and flare up, right? But in love, everything means nothing. So you can say something to me, and if it's criticism or something like that, I would look at you as like, wow, that energy you're trying to pass on to me, not really trying to accept it. And it wouldn't trigger me. It would just basically, like, I would look at you as like, okay, you're having a moment. I'm not trying to join that moment, but I will let you, let that be. And Bruce Lee talked about, the beauty of just experiencing someone's words not being triggered, breathing and letting it pass. And that's, that's what I think a lot of us have to do. But the vulnerability, I'll actually let you go, and then we'll get into the takeaways for this episode. But.
Yeah. I would say, your expression that we have the choice to assign meaning to whatever comes our way, and it's the lens that we look through life, our viewpoint, our eyes, and everything is a reflection, right? Because we have our eyes, it's the lens, and I think that ability to not just go off of the mind, because we are in our minds a lot, and so we want to analyze and process via letting things pass through our mental body, but to let yourself open up so that you can feel in your body, how does this feel physically? How do I feel emotionally? And just going through your whole fabric and all your layers so that we do have that choice again, and that ability to stay open. Yeah.
So the aha moments, right? The takeaways. We like to always leave you with some takeaways and stuff like that. So go back to our birthplace, our birthright. Our true nature is forgiving free spirits as children. So we are, if you look at, I always tell people, if you want to look at the way life is meant to be, go to a playground and look at some 3-year-olds. At that point in time, they have not developed any type of filters, and every single thing, like I said in the very beginning of this episode, is their decision is to experience pleasure. It's to gain pleasure. I mean, they skip, they'll move from, one activity to another, and it's just all about having fun and being joyous. And then as we get older, obviously, like I said, we start to develop these filters. We become closed off. But our biggest non-negotiable need as a human is love. And our second biggest non-negotiable need as a human is connection. And so even like you and I think we connected because we were vulnerable. We had a conversation and we went deep. It was, most people have surface level conversations, and you and I just connected. I looked at, like I told you, like I looked in your eyes and I was like, this is a really, I could tell you were a genuine person. And I was able to just let my guard down and be me. Right. Yeah. And you picked up on that, and then you were able to be yourself. And, when you're vulnerable, you have deeper connections, and you just have a deeper, it's just real. It just seems, it's real. So
authentic.
Yeah. It's authentic. Exactly. So, takeaways I like to give, and then, you can give your takeaways. I always tell people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, I think that's when you're experiencing growth. I always tell people, like, I walk, I smile. I think a smile is, they said that smile is a contagious thing. It's non-threatening. It allows other people to drop their guards. And I probably during the course of a day, if I'm out, I'll probably smile and say hi to at least 5 people. And with no expectations, right? Because some people look and they're just like, why is this dude smiling? Or, and other people are like, they can actually, as I'm smiling and I'm making eye contact, they'll actually smiling back at me, and, we have interaction. Sometimes we're walking towards a line and we're standing in a line and we start a conversation. And all of that is because I think the smile breaks people down, and it makes you kind of non-threatening, and it kind of portrays or illuminates your soul, so to speak. And Tony Robbins says that if we lose our expectations and trade those into acceptance, then our world changes immediately. And that's one of the things I like to do. So smile, look people in the eye, say hi, and don't expect anything back, but it just makes you feel better too, I think.
Yeah, I love those, Eric. And usually our takeaways can be very simple, but super effective. The few that I have are to always speak and act in your truth, because people don't always know what you're feeling or thinking. So speak up about it. Don't be afraid to say the wrong thing or that you won't come across truthfully. As long as you have a pure intention and an intention to be authentic and truthful, that is your power. And one thing that came to me is that vulnerability is authenticity. Authenticity is truth, and truth is power. So we want to stand in our power so that we can be ourselves and have the freedom to express ourselves. And then another thing, in addition to speaking and acting in your truth, is to soften and open your heart space, particularly, but also your other energy centers, your third eye, the rest of your body. And you can do this with guided meditation, visualization, taking some yoga classes, self-nurturing, spending time outside. If you observe nature, you'll notice that everything kind of has this ebb and flow, give and take. So just being in that space can help you expand and open. And just remembering, I think my biggest takeaway is that you can change in this moment. It doesn't take a lot of legwork. You can make that choice right now. So, I would say that is our episode on discovering vulnerability. And I encourage you all to just soften, be vulnerable. Don't be fearful.
Yeah. Remember, vulnerability is actually the key to happiness, and courage is the gateway to vulnerability. So be courageous, and don't be afraid to be judged, and be yourself. You'll be surprised. You'll have deeper connections. You'll have deeper friendships. You'll have deeper relationships all the way around, which will improve the quality of your life. So
Yeah. Thanks you all for watching
yeah.
and listening. Thank you for tuning into the Cowfish Show. Check back for future episodes on raising consciousness, creating happiness, fulfillment, and love.
And remember to find us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at The Cowfish Show.